and all of that. So cannot manage decor like this.
But you tell me more about your.
Yeah, that's my book.
Yeah, what the heck? Aron Ra, author and provocateur, and his book is Foundational Falsehood of Creationism. A good read. I have to do it in bite-sized segments. I do, Aron, I do, man. I grab a chapter in the middle, and then if I read a few pages, and then it definitely whets my appetite for more. But yeah, so find this. There you are, right there.
Thank you very much.
How often are you doing podcasts? Your podcast, or is it just whenever you?
I just did one this morning where I was on twice a month. I do a podcast where I read a section of the Quran, and then I do a hangout with Arabic-speaking people who were raised in Islam and can tell me the traditional interpretations. And so I've written out my opinion of what I've just read, and I compare tafsirs and a number of different translations. And then these other people come on and talk to me about their experiences with these verses and what it means. Today was a little different because we had a couple of Islamic apologists that made it a 4.5-hour ordeal of constant arguing over every damn verse. No, it does not mean that. It means.
Yeah, but okay, all right, fair enough. But thank you for coming over here after your 4.5-hour
ordeal.
Endurance. Yeah, I do appreciate it. So anyone who's watching, please, man, comments or questions in the chat room are totally fine. What do you got going? There's no comment. I'm just kidding. I remember when I ran across you in Deep Ellum and you had another T-shirt that was like, "Fuck you" or something. I don't know.
Fuck you.
Because you're such a friendly guy.
Well, thank you much.
As a reminder, our show is sponsored by Liquid Death. It's water that's healthy and good for you because it's high pH.
Okay.
All right. So, are you doing? Where do I find your podcast, man? I really should know this, but where do I find your stuff?
My channel is Aron Ra. Yeah, Aron Ra, Aron Ra on YouTube, and I support myself through Patreon. And I do not have a whole lot of subscribers, a whole lot of patrons, but patreon.com/ARONRA. And I need all the help I can get. So as I say, twice a month, I will do a Quran lesson. I call it Quran Lessons for the Infidel.
All right.
And we've been having some fun with that. One of the things I like is we get all these apostates, people who were raised in Islam and eventually found their way out of it. And now they've got this community that's on our show where they get to, and some of them are in very bad places to be talking about Islam.
Other parts of the world.
Yes. And so this is their outlet.
Gotcha.
So they're in a very more restricted than most people know, in countries most people have never heard of, but they're in very bad situation, except when they can every other Sunday be on the show. And
no kidding.
Yep.
So they love it. They love it, right? So look, right. Dave Ainsworth said, "Nice shirt. I've always been a huge fan since I became publicly atheist." So Dave is a big fan of yours.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and he got thrilled when he found out you were coming in today. And next time you come on, we want to invite Dave to be in the studio too. So
that sounds good. And then other things I do, I do science advocacy. I do use like science lessons and such. I do, and they're not boring like it sounds, but I like to focus on taxonomy, which is something that I'm passionate about, but a lot of other people don't understand. And I found a way to come up with the argument of my parrot was eating a chicken wing a couple weeks back, and somebody was freaking out on Facebook. It's a cannibal. So I had to show the taxonomy to show how far apart parrots are from chickens. And it's like a 25-minute video. And there's all this praise for how
no kidding,
how it conveyed that story in an amusing and entertaining way. Which, when you talk about taxonomy, it's hard to imagine how it can be amusing and entertaining.
I think of you as an archaeologist.
Oh, I'm actually getting a degree from Arizona State University's Institute of Human Origins. I'm in my last class that I couldn't schedule last semester, so I have one class to finish before I have my Bachelor of Science degree.
Way to
but
go,
it's
man.
but in
Yeah,
anthropology.
didn't you start and then you had family things to deal with, and then now you're back? But
Yeah.
is this why you just drove to Arizona to attend class?
No, the Arizona thing. I took a trip to Arizona for the stupidest of reasons. One of my old biker buddies said, "Hey man, it's been like 15 years since we partied together." And so okay, so, so drove out there.
Okay.
Drove out there for a barbecue. Steaks and boneless beef ribs with ghost pepper marinade, and stuff's live.
Here's what we want to know about all your other pets, if you have any others. So
Okay.
the parrot.
Yeah. Okay. And then I have we've got 3 cats and 3 dogs, and my son has a rat. And of my 3 dogs, there's one that most people have seen if they watch my show. Whenever I'm doing a podcast, there's this huge polar bear, Great Pyrenees, that gets on camera. And if he's not on camera, then he's almost constantly barking at whatever. So it's very frustrating. A leaf falls outside, and I'm on a podcast, and suddenly it's bar, 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 dive for the mute button. Once he goes, the others go, and it'll
The other
be
dogs start barking.
it'll be like, and one of them does a scream bark, which is kind of a painful thing to listen to, and the other one does a horrible yodel yell that sounds like it's being electrocuted. So I've got like a minute. Once any of them start barking, I hit the mute, and I pretend to be listening to the person I'm talking to, while I actually can't hear anything.
Right. Gotcha. But you have it on mute. You're nodding in agreement.
Yep. No idea what they're saying.
And the parrot. Now, I'm doing a photo shoot soon where I'm going to be a pirate, and I'm wondering if I could borrow said parrot for a bet. It'll be right here.
One condition, I got to take a picture with you. Oh wait, no.
That'd be fun.
No. I was just thinking, I have a full pirate outfit.
Even better.
I have the coat. I have the
But could
tricorn.
I wear it?
The thing you can't wear is the bird.
All right.
You would come away disfigured. My wife has established a relationship with the bird where she can actually carry him on her arm.
Okay.
But she wouldn't let him on her shoulder, because on your shoulder, he has access to important stuff on your face.
Yes, indeed. And
he pierced my ear in a way that I did not want to have it pierced.
well, darn. Can't you fill it in with an earring or something?
Yeah, I mean, the parrot was mad because it was the big freeze. They cut off all our electricity, and we eventually lost the lizard. We had a bearded dragon, and the house got frozen. So we thought we saved him. He made it for a little. He made it for a little while, but it wasn't long after the freeze, and he lost it. So unfortunately, we do blame the freeze, because they kept turning our electricity off.
Yes.
Without and telling us, oh, it'll be back on in 3 hours, and then 2 days later, that kind of thing.
I was there with you, man.
Yeah, that was.
Is it time that we rethink capitalism?
You know what? I never identified as a socialist. I always thought I was a capitalist. But tell you what, one thing that really irritates me is, aside from the rampant corruption that capitalism invariably produces, fucking advertisements.
You mean like YouTube, radio,
Yeah.
everywhere?
You put this on YouTube, and YouTube will you put an ad in the front, put an ad at the back, put an ad at the bottom. There'll be another ad at the top.
Oh yeah.
On my videos, if I do a 20-minute video, I'll have 6 ads like in the middle.
I've noticed.
I'm like, the fuck. And so and they won't let you set up the limits before you post it. You have to post the video and then track into the way to edit it after the fact, to say, no, I don't want 8 ads. Just put like 1 or 2 or 2 if it's a long video.
Okay, but besides advertising, just the profit motive should not be in public utilities for Texas to have to suffer for it.
If anybody's watching this outside of Texas, let's give them a little heads up on this. The ERCOT, which is the Texas power grid. Texas has its own power grid. We are the only state in the country. Everything is on I forget what they call them. There's a western one and an eastern one.
The grid.
There's some kind of.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you notice El Paso we were talking about is
on the New Mexico.
Is on the western grid. So El Paso kind of escaped this issue that we suffered here.
Yeah.
In Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Austin.
Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah. So what happened with ERCOT was it wasn't just incompetence. So there was so many lies, just I mean blatant, outright lies. ERCOT made a public announcement shortly before the freeze. They said that they'd winterized all their systems. They're ready for it. Don't worry.
Did they?
They hadn't done a fucking thing. They pocketed the profits and just lied to say that everything was working. Then when everything went down, and I mean everything went down, the governor gets on Fox News and he starts saying how it was our green energy that failed. It was the solar and the wind generators that failed. And this is why we need to have fossil fuels. But Iowa was running solar and wind, and their generators didn't freeze because they knew how to winterize a windmill so that it doesn't freeze. We didn't, right? So and how much colder is Iowa than Texas?
Yeah.
You know, so like 15 degrees below zero last time I was there. So, and we don't ever get that cold. Not even this year did we get anything like what Iowa always sees. But then it turns out even worse than that was that the solar and the wind only accounts for 20% of Texas's energy. The other 80% is mostly natural gas, but also nuclear. Nuclear failed because of this freeze. How the fuck does a nuclear reactor fail in a freeze? Because they don't winterize the dials, the gauges, so you can't read anything because all the gauges stopped. This is also what killed natural gas. You would think that flaming natural gas would not freeze, but the meters do, and then nothing works. So everything, the entire grid collapsed. And the other thing is when they're cutting off all our power for people who have dire need in a house that we have to take care of our exotic pets. We have to be able to protect our insulin in some cases, things like that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of reasons that people should not have their power cut off arbitrarily. But did you notice that downtown in all the big cities still let up? All the streamlined, all the trim. Downtown Dallas is kind of like the Emerald Hills, or excuse me, the Emerald City from Wizard of Oz, because everything's green tinted, so you've got green lights, green string lights, and everything. They left all that shit on. So I saw this beautiful news story in Austin where they show downtown Austin, fully lit up and everything, but then you show this apartment complex where everything's frozen over and black,
dark,
and people huddled and freezing. Icicles on the toilet inside the house.
Yep.
But you got downtown lit up. They shut power to hospitals. They shut power to the water treatment centers. So when the water came back on, don't drink it.
Right.
How fucking stupid is this?
You're describing a third world nation.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So now Elon Musk is threatening to take over ERCOT so that Texas grid becomes Tesla grid.
I didn't know this.
Yep. So that'll be amusing to see how that works out.
So there's an upside to this. There's got to be an upside.
Yeah, I mean, Elon Musk has said some stupid things. He's said some things that I don't agree with, but I have to give the guy credit. He's the reason that we have electric cars. He forced the market to do what the market deliberately tried everything not to do. We were talking before, the CEO of Chevrolet recalls and destroys every electric car. They don't want there to be electric cars.
Back in the late 80s.
Back in the late 80s.
Yeah.
So they come up with every bullshit excuse why the electric car will never work. Elon Musk comes out with something that says, not only will it work, watch what it can do. Boom!
Yeah.
So your Lamborghini Aventador lost to a four-door sedan.
And you do not need an extension cord. You cannot plug it.
Exactly. Well, that is I like engineering. I like when the fact that you have a Lamborghini Aventador or the C7 8 or the C7 Vet or the C8 Vet, if you like those. There's an awful lot of engineering that goes into those. I think that the Dodge Demon managed to come up with 800 some odd horsepower, right? And so there's an awful lot of. Let's ignore the fuel economy for just a moment. Just think about the wonder of what used to produce 275 horses, back when I was a kid, is producing 800 now. That's incredible. But you don't need all that engineering. Put a fucking electric motor in it. Faster, more powerful, more torque. And in gas mileage, I could have a fucking monster truck with a motor on each wheel, 200 horsepower per tire, have instant torque everywhere. And instead of getting 3.5 miles a gallon, I would charge up for free overnight. Because I charge from home. It doesn't have an appreciable effect on our electric bill. I can't see that I'm paying any more than
You're talking about the electric vehicle you have in your family.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I charge my electric car. I can drive 250 miles. I can drive to Fort Worth. Go to a bunch of breweries or whatever, because that's what I do, and then come back. And
well, that's a lot less than 250 miles. You can go 200, 300 on a charge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we do all of our around town driving, and I still won't have to charge the car for like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
But when you do, 6 hours or so, and it's fully charged again, and you get another 250 miles, and it doesn't cost anything. So if you were used to having a big old giant 4-wheel drive gas monster, and you're getting your 3.5 miles a gallon, because I know lots of people that had exactly that. One of my friends in high school had a 66 GTO, and his mileage was 3.5. 3.5 miles a gallon with a Ram Air 4440.
Yeah. When those cars zoom by on the highway now, I'm thinking, there goes 10 gallons right there, just passing me. You hear I'm coming, right?
Exactly.
So, if you go out on Dallas freeways at 2 in the morning, there will be 20 races going by you. There will on the freeway.
So my thought, if you want to promote the electric car, this is one thing Elon Musk would not do. You saw when he came over with a truck.
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck designed that? Was he in kindergarten
yet?
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I know. It looks like a child did.
Yep. Looking like a child. But if I built the damn thing, it would have removable doors. It would have fold-down seats. You have seat belts for 9. You can fold back the back seat into the floor and have a short bed. You can fold the next seat into the floor and have a long bed. You would have snap-down, zip-up roof so that you can have an SUV. You can have a crew cab, pickup truck. You can go full convertible, take the whole thing off, take the doors off, everything become a fucking dune buggy, except that the tires would be 42-inch super singles.
You love the big tire, man.
Why not?
Right.
You're charging. I'm on a green energy program, which is available for you too. We signed up for it in Garland, so that all of our energy comes from solar and wind, so that we actually are green. So people always trying to find anything about just because it's electric don't mean green. It's just this brown. No, I'm getting my electric from solar and wind.
There you go.
So I'm accounting for that. So this is what they ought to do. Give Cletus and Jim Bob one of these kind of trucks like I would design. We have 800 horsepower and instant torque from an electric motor, and instead of having 3.5 miles a gallon, they charge up for what is essentially free to go hundreds of miles and then back to their single wide trailer in the boonies. They would absolutely love that shit. When you get on instant torque and drop that pedal, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna.
Right. We are creatures of habit. And does it seem like America, Texas in particular, we have to be dragged crying and screaming into the future for advances and improvements and changes in technology to make our lives better?
Yeah, so even if you have the thing about progressives versus conservatives, and one way to summarize that is that if you're conservatives and you're longing for the good old days and you don't want things to change, or if anything, you want to change them back to the way they used to be. And then I'm the kid that grew up watching Star Trek and Star Wars going, when can we have some of that? That's what I want.
Star Trek and Star Wars. Okay. Because what we went back to in February was the Flintstones. So
that was fun.
hails to Dave Ainsworth, Manny. He agrees with you about ERCOT, and Richard Nettleton hails, man. Thank you for watching, Richard. He's always here every Sunday, man. We appreciate you. But man, look, GM did announce that they're producing the Hummer as an electric vehicle. This sort of fits your description.
Close. It's as close as they're going to get unless I do it. The thing with the Hummer is that it's the only electric truck that can fit 37-inch tires like I have in my Jeep outside.
Yeah.
I've talked to Rivian. I talked to their designers. They said it's not possible to modify their truck to put 37s on it. And I have to explain to these people, do you know what an off-road vehicle in all electric would be like? Here's the problem with an electric truck when growing up. You have these huge differentials for the low end gearing, right? So the different, you've got the axle between the tires, you got this big old ball in the middle for your gears. That can only be so high off the ground because it's running right between the center of the tires. You could jack the body up all you want to, you still get that fucking differential in the way of everything. So the only way around that is to get big tires. But if you have an electric car, that whole thing is gone. There's no transmission. There's no oil. There's no radiator.
There's no oil changes needed.
There's no maintenance.
Practically,
I've lost
just the tire.
I've lost 6 cars over the course of my life because a thermostat broke. A 60 I'm going down the freeway and I went, hey, why does my heater not work? Oh, it's because my engine's on fire.
Okay, and the what is it they're stealing now underneath trucks? The anti-pollution
Catalytic converters.
Catalytic converter.
That's gone.
That's
no
gone.
exhaust pipe.
Anyone slides under your electric vehicle, they're not going to be able to saw off and steal anything.
So Kia, we got a Kia Niro,
Yeah.
and it was when Tesla came out, they were so quiet. A friend of mine bought a Tesla S and hit me with it.
Because you didn't hear it coming.
The car's right behind me. He's just pulling into his driveway. I'm just standing there and talking to people. I don't hear the car moving. I don't know that, the first time I got an electric car, we were in Norway, and the guy pushes the button and says, well, it's on.
You didn't hear anything.
Not hear anything. So they have to put noises into it that
Right.
it doesn't need.
Right.
So we have these ridiculous songs and tones and stuff that come on with it.
Is one of the tones like an engine rev?
No,
or
it's
no?
they at least had a little bit of style with that. They give you different noises. I went to visit some friends in Phoenix, and then they were freaking out because my car sounded like a land speeder.
See, I would want Tupac and maybe a scene from Family Guy to be playing when you're near other people. It just starts playing, so they hear you coming.
So they give you a weird synthesizer, like if you have one of those keyboards, mobile keyboard, it's one of those, and it plays. It's the kind of noise that it makes when it pulls up. That's why it's a land speeder.
Wait a second. Do you get to create this or choose this? You said they give you a synthesizer. What do you mean?
No. They don't give you a synthesizer. It's encoded into the car. But
Okay.
what was cool about it was that it's not a simulation of an internal combustion engine. They want people to know that, hey, this is electric. So it goes.
And so that's the Jetsons now. Right?
Exactly.
So we always go back to the cartoon.
Yeah, and now think about this. Think about this with electricity, because the Jetsons now is a reasonable thing. We figured out helicopters are incredibly unstable. Lots of people die. There's every way that you can fuck up real easy. But when you put 4 rotors on it, suddenly you have unbelievable
Was that in the
stability.
Jetsons?
No, but we have these like little drones that you can shoot them up like 160 feet in the air, and it just suddenly stop, and it sits. It's flying, but it's not moving. It's absolutely still. You've got cameras on it, and so it's absolutely still. When they realized we have this kind of stability, why don't we just make it bigger? And then somebody bought one of the big ones and strapped his dog to it.
Yeah, I saw that. And it took the dog for a walk.
It
Right.
took the dog for a flight. So this bulldog is hanging off this drone flying around. So that's when they realized, why don't we make it just a bit bigger and like maybe put seats on the fucking thing? Still electric, still makes that goofy noise, but it's totally stable. It's the only VTOL, and every other VTOL aircraft, vertical landing and takeoff, is extremely loud. But not this.
Yeah.
This is just the sound of the rotors.
Yeah. The other thing is from the Jetsons, right? Is Rosie the maid?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's now a sex bot. I mean, that is the future. So when I last visited a sex store, okay, there was a robot for sale, I think, in a cabinet off to the side that looked realistic. So if you don't like being with people, but still need, sexual connection, what?
That's what I was just thinking. You're jumping into the future, when I, as an old man, have to tell my grandkids, "You're back in my day, we had to make do with hand lotion and our imagination."
We actually fucked real people. This is the future, Aron. This is.
Okay, well now I understand that they have a sex bot that has sensitivity, actually has sensation, so that we now have a robot that can be disappointed by sex.
I just want one that tries to talk back, and then I have to hush her. Hush!
You're crossing bad ground there.
Oh, come on. Look, what else? Don't we need some high-speed rail? It'll never come to America, will it? It will never
They're
be
working on
across the country.
Well, they're actually working on it now, right now. And there's a high-speed rail that is supposed to be set up between Dallas here and Houston.
Okay, well, that's regional.
Yeah, but then they're also doing one. They're doing a hyperline from Los Angeles to New York, and it's supposed to connect to like Phoenix, which I just recently found is like the 5th largest city in the country.
It is?
Yeah. So how long from Los Angeles to Phoenix on a high-speed rail?
Let me guess.
Mhm.
Hour and a half?
I don't think it would take that long. It's hard for me to say because when you talk about high-speed rail, how high speed is it? Because some trains are stupid fast, like 300 miles an hour. I don't think we're going to have that right away. But it would be nice to have rail. I mean, when I went to Europe, I made the mistake of flying around different countries.
Yeah.
And I had a flight in Prague that was delayed by 6 hours and was supposed to go to Frankfurt. And I realized if I'd rented a car in Prague, I'd have been to Frankfurt before our plane took off. It's the fucking Autobahn. This is
Oh, gotcha.
that would have been the way to go. And then in London, I mean, have you ever been to London?
Yeah.
Yeah, the tube. I fucking love that.
Yep.
We would come out of our flat, my wife wants to go here, my daughter wants to go there, I want to go to this other place. Hey, we'll all meet back at this other place, this second location, some other point in the day, and we can all just do that. And I don't have to call somebody to have them come pick me up and take me back and all that.
Yep.
I would love to have something like the tube because that's stellar.
We do have kind of a rail system that works pretty good if you don't want to leave DFW Airport. It's pretty good.
Yeah, well, we have good intercity trains too, as long as you drive to the train station.
Yeah.
And have another car at the other station to take you back to where you go if you're like going to work or whatever. Have another lead because the trains only go that far, and then you have to drive to get there and back.
Look, you can tell I'm anti-car, and the problem with an electric vehicle is it's still a car. And that means crowded freeways, and that means, no high-speed rail, and that means you have to, you still have to get out there in the slog.
Yeah, well, here's the thing for me. I mean, I like cars. I like to drive. So they want to come out with cars that they don't have a steering wheel anymore because the car drives itself. No, that's bad for me because I'm a terrible passenger. I have control issues. I can be in an airplane. I can fly the airplane. I'm perfectly fine. I can be on a motorcycle in horrible traffic going way too fast. But if I'm in a roller coaster, relatively safe. But I have no control at all. Fuck no. Because now I'm just being thrown around.
You're a pilot?
No.
Okay.
But I have flown.
All right.
I particularly like ultralights.
The little glider?
Well, there's one that I especially like is it has the hang glider wing, and it's basically a motorcycle underneath it. It's a flying motorcycle. So you have the step seat like the king and queen seats from the old Harleys. So when the girl sits there, her legs are your armrest, her breasts are your headrest.
Come on!
That's she's looking over your head as you just imagine doing the Grand Canyon in that. It goes 80 miles an hour and just
there you go.
Coming low to the ground and then suddenly
Right.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that I like to fly when I can, but it's a rich man's hobby and I am not capable of maintaining that hobby.
Yeah, Richard said, I'm still waiting for teleportation. I stayed at a hotel in Austin that had parking for a Tesla to park and charge. So yeah, I mean, it's coming. And we said, I think off the air, that GM is saying all they will build in 14 years is just electric.
Well, 10 years ago, in 2013, when you get the first Teslas out there to show the Tesla S that shows it, look what a Billy Badass electric car can do. Chevy and Ford should both have started clicking in their heads to realize they're going to need trucks, and we should be on this. This is a wave we're not going to stop.
Yep.
We should be about. They started modeling for that shit what, a year ago?
Yes.
Fuck, where the fuck have you been for the last decade?
Right. Yes, good point. And these corporate CEOs, this is what you're taught at business school, are paid to have vision. To have vision. What? Come on.
But they're
so 8 years ago, and they're finally now jumping on this wave.
But they're so conservative. I mean, they want to be everything. They want to be absolutely safe. They don't want to put up a bold styling thing, except for whoever built the fucking Juke. that is such an ugly car. I can't believe somebody got paid more money than me to design that. But otherwise, Ford and Chevy, they just want to do the same thing they've always done, and just do it no different than they've always done. And it's time to do something a little better, and we need to do it fast.
Yeah, we do.
So I was talking to somebody at Suzuki, and they were saying that they were designing a much more energy efficient internal combustion engine. It'll be out in 5 years. Like 5 years, you're designing an engine now that you're going to come out with in 5 years. No one is going to want no one's going to want that car in 5 years.
Right. Look, and if we talk about the 8 years difference there, and even the last 20 years in cars, what has really changed except improvements in technology, minor improvements in here or there, and safety? Okay, there may be some safety issues that have improved a little, but has there been any fundamental change in cars in years and years and years?
Well, Dodge and Chevy both brought back the old style cars they had in the 60s.
There you go.
Just remodeled, but we've got the 69 Camaro every year now.
Look, hey, nothing bad about Camaros, man. Lily drives one, so and she'll be here soon with it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I do like those cars, and I like cars, but the thing that I have against cars is roads.
Potholes, or what do you?
I'm an environmentalist.
You want to be off-road.
I want there to be a wilderness area where animals can migrate, where maybe we don't kill everything we have alive by using them as speed bumps. That's what I would like to see. Like maybe not quite so many roads, or some like if you did rail, and or if we had something that flew, and we had a more reliable way of doing that, then animals could safely cross the street.
Yeah, I hear you.
I don't know if you've ever encountered this. I'm driving home from work one day when I lived in Alpine, Arizona, which is way up in the mountains. And there's this herd of elk crossing the road in front of me. Big bull elk walks out first. He stands sideways and faces me. So I pull up to stop, and he's just looking at me like this while his family passes. Mm-hmm. Then when they're all gone, he's the crossing guard.
Yes. No kidding. That's cool.
It's brilliant. Yeah. So I like to see how he takes responsibility. I'm sitting up watching a horror movie. We live in some trailer out in the forest, and suddenly there's this horrible crashing against the side of the house, and it's an elk racking his antlers right outside my window. Yeah. So I opened the door to figure it out, and it hit the elk with the door.
What? Did the elk seek revenge right then?
No, surprisingly, there was 8 of them between me and my car. And I just...
Were you trying to get to your car?
These things are as big as horses. I'm walking between them to get to my
car. Ford brought back the Bronco. Good point, Richard. And he said he wants a time-traveling DeLorean.
Yeah. And then Ford said, well, we're going to do a performance car, but let's do a crossover SUV because everybody likes crossover SUVs. But because we can't have an original idea anymore, let's call it Mustang.
There you go.
How is that a Mustang?
Are there any more original ideas in America?
Have you seen movies lately?
No, they're all copies of old movies.
Yeah, the last movie I saw, King Kong versus Godzilla.
Okay, well, I did like it.
You like that one?
Yeah.
Now we have something to argue about. That movie. I mean, every Godzilla movie was dumb, and I love Godzilla. Godzilla was my hero.
But I kind of like dumb movies, Aron.
It's one thing to say to be a dumb movie, but then to glorify the conspiracy theorist, right? To when the girl is agreeing with it, she's the hero of the show. She's supposed to be the smart one, and she's agreeing that fluoridation causes you to be more malleable or manipulated. Okay. The fuck are we talking about here? Okay. Everything in that movie was so fucking stupid. So you walk into you walk into this facility, you somehow get into the heart of the facility. Nobody saw you get into the heart of this huge facility, the size of 10 buildings.
You've got to suspend your disbelief and just enjoy and relax.
Okay, if you're gonna make a science fiction movie, you're gonna do something as ridiculous as showing a lizard that is 400 feet tall and radioactive with a breath weapon. Try not to make everything else in the movie. Make everything else in the movie completely believable. Have some kind of thing where it looks that this is plausible in some way. But what they did instead was they made everything else more ridiculous than Godzilla.
Oh, come on.
So that he becomes the sane one in the whole movie.
That's the point.
It's so fucking
but then King Kong. Look, with Kong, what I was amazed at is the fingernails. There was a close up of the fingernails, and I'm thinking, how does he keep those trimmed? Because this Kong is huge.
And he manicures his nails much better than I do.
I want to see the clippers or the scissors, man, that this Kong uses.
So they built a dome over his entire island because a storm killed everybody. A storm. These people have been living on this tropical island for centuries, and a storm killed everybody. Left all the plants, left all the other animals, but only killed the people, killed all the people, except for the weakest and tiniest and most helpless of them. She somehow survives.
I love the fact you're a scientist, my friend. I do. You're right. You approach Hollywood movies from a different perspective.
Yeah, I remember being 11-year-old and watching sci-fi movies and saying, it wouldn't work like that. That wouldn't. I remember trying to explain to my parents. We were watching an old Flash Gordon serial, and you see this the rocket ship that he flies on. Well, first of all, what's the sound that the rocket ship makes? It's an internal combustion engine rocket ship. Okay, so it wouldn't make that noise, and here's why. And then as it's flying through space, you see the smoke coming out and then going up.
Right.
So my parents were completely beside themselves when I'm trying to say, but the smoke wouldn't go up because there is no up. And they get confused. What do you mean there's no up?
See, I've never heard this argument against a B movie. Okay. The vapor trail is wrong here.
Why would it turn to go that way? Because in space it was just arbitrarily go over there. Why not? If you just
Look, I was okay in Kong versus Zilla. Did they get to the center of the Earth and then flip over to the upside down? What was that? Did I understand that right?
So Godzilla couldn't somehow track Kong when he's stomping around killing Titans on his home island. So that's why they put a dome over it to stop Godzilla from still not being able to do that. And then somehow Godzilla can sense when Kong is in the center of the Earth because the Earth is hollow. How much more fucking stupid can we be? And so what is his reaction? He psychically tells that King Kong is in the center of the Earth. So he faces down, does his breath weapon thing, and blasts through 4,000 miles of rock in a moment. I've seen, how many movies have you seen where he hits the breath weapon on something and it just stands right, goes like this? Right? It cuts through 4,000 miles of rock.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, be some obliteration there. Yeah. Hey, but all right. So help me understand the first chapter here. And I think this is one that says evolution does not equal atheism. Is your
The first foundational falsehood of creationism is people. The problem is that the people that I'm arguing with think in terms of dichotomies. There's no extenuating circumstances. There's no nuance. You know, it's black or white. There's no gray. There's no spectrum of color. There's this or this. Everything is this or this. There's not even a middle point. There's just this or this. And so it's really hard to get around that. So people think that you have to be absolutely all. Somebody was complaining to me today, saying Christians are. The problem is you're a naturalist. Christians are not naturalists, meaning he's a supernaturalist, meaning he's denying reality because everything is fucking magic. They don't use the word magic, but it's magic. It's supernatural, miracle, all things it's necromancy, it's blessings, it's curses, it's everything magical. We just don't call it magic because that would sound silly. Yeah.
I got you. And look, and the other, I'm sorry, you've got more.
Yeah. So on the one side of their false dichotomy, you have people who cannot be reasoned with, will not be reasoned with. The reality, and a philosophy professor at a seminary school told me that evidence is not evident because facts are not factual, because nothing ever at all can ever be objectively verified, because he's an idealist who thinks that our reality, anybody's reality, is their individual conjuration. So that what's real for you is not real for me. That's, people are that, professor, PhD, philosopher, and he's that fucking stupid. Well, but then on the other side of this, on their false dichotomy, you have people that adamantly reject God, that have a belief in no Godism, because they can't get anything right. So all the details have to be perverted as much as possible, where you believe in the magical miracle of evolutionism, which is another bucket of bullshit. And the nice thing is when I try to explain how most of the champions and pioneers of evolution have been or still are Christians with advanced scientific training. And I can name a bunch of them. I've interviewed some of them. But that just doesn't cross in their mind. You have to be all this or you have to be all that. And you can't be in the middle. You certainly can't be on a spectrum either way, because then it's too much for their minds.
100
It's like trying to figure out why the smoke goes up when there is no.
There you go. And also, what's wrong with the word random? This is an argument used against atheism that, what is wrong with random? Random is the world, isn't it?
One of the many contradictions that you get from these people is that they think that random means anything that is not intended. And so they say that their God cannot have orchestrated evolution. He's in control of absolutely everything. If you lose your keys, it's because God did it. When you find your keys, it's because God did it. Everything, absolutely everything is under his control, but somehow evolution is not. Why? Because evolution is random. However, what's the most random thing you can think of? That the lottery was designed to be as random as imaginable, right? It's the most random thing possible. But if you win the lottery, God gave you a gift. Totally random. Let's look at other things that are completely random. You get a deck of cards, you shuffle it up a whole fuckload of times, completely random. You spill the chicken bones, you spill the tea leaves, you spill the entrails and read them. All random. But this is how they're talking to their supernatural beings. Another thing, random, you don't allow words to be precisely defined. Be as vague and ambiguous and just like reading your horoscope in the newspaper. It has to be really vague in order to fit at all. But that's how they commune. So
I've been reading more, and they're more specific on it. No, I'm playing the devil's advocate.
Okay. Well, so they get upset that things that they want there to be a purpose. They want to imagine that they are best friends with the most powerful being imaginable, and that they will never die, and that they are the reason the universe exists. And if you're not so arrogant as to believe that you are the reason the universe exists, if you believe that you were just some insignificant speck in the periphery, that's because I'm arrogant and they're not. I don't understand how my arrogance tells me that I'm not as important as they are, and their humility tells them that they're the reason for everything.
Where else have you been traveling to, man? Or was 2020 just a year of no travel?
I got one trip in, well, two. I made it to Mexico early in January. I was supposed to have this incredible trip that was canceled in November. These people were talking about paying me a shit ton of money to come on a trip that was going to be fantastic. They wanted me to come speak in
London, right?
Well, they wanted me to speak in Delhi, but I said my wife had never been to India, so I'm like, okay, so if we're going to do this, and I can pick the date, and I want to do it in January because I want to be able to fly to Vijayawada, because in India, Vijayawada, there's a World Atheist Convention, and there was a atheist ashram kind of a thing. They own their own apartment block, they own their own museum, they have their own hospital, an atheist community center. It's the only one in the world in India. Right across the street from a Catholic community center, which is across the street from a Muslim community center. But okay,
yeah,
it's the only one in the world. So
we're for plurality.
So I was interested in doing that. And my wife, as I said, had not been to India, so I wanted to take her and show her the Taj Mahal, because I've seen the Taj Mahal. And so I wanted to do that. And then when we were leaving, the guy that was setting this up for me says, well, I'm not going to be in India at that time. If you talk about doing it in January for this event that you want to go to, I'll be in China then. Gosh, it'd be nice if you could come to China. I'm like, well, you're paying me enough. I can go to China. I'm going 12 hours around the world. I can either turn around and go back, or I can just keep going. And then I would be in China, and then Vietnam and Hong Kong and and so on. We hadn't plotted all that trip. It was just, but I was going to be stopping in London, stopping in Dubai, stopping in Delhi, and it was going to be one trip around the world. Who gets to do that?
No one.
So I was really excited that this was going to happen to me. And then because the guy had offered me a stupid amount of money, I'm sure that's the reason that they canceled it. It was like, you offered him that, and fuck you.
Well,
but here's the advantage. The city in China that I was supposed to be in January of 2020, it's called Wuhan.
gotcha.
So in retrospect, dodged a bullet there.
Yes.
The only trip I really got was to South Africa, right at the beginning of all this. And I spent 2 weeks in the South African Karoo, wandering around the desert looking for fossils on a paleontological expedition. That was great fun. And that's why I have my Jeep, by the way. I got that because we had university provided trucks with little old street tires.
In Peru.
No, in South Africa.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we were in South Africa. We have these trucks that were provided by the university. They're four-wheel drive, but what does that mean? They're driving around on street tires, right? And so they can't get very far. And so we had to walk miles away from where the four-wheel drives could get to us to go find these fossils. And so we found one that was, God, how big was this? About the size of your refrigerator. We found a fossil about the size of your refrigerator, and we had to take it out in pieces. It was a huge animal. And so we've got like a chunk of it, let's say about half the size of your freezer. So it's a big rock, and there's 6 of us have to carry this rock all together at the same time.
Yeah.
A heavy fucking thing. And we're going jagged rocks down a hill, up a hill. We have to do this for miles.
Yeah.
So I said, I want a Jeep that will get all the way out to that fucking fossil. So I have to do this.
Right.
I expected to do more paleo expeditions in a similar terrain, which would be in West Texas, like Odessa area. Looks very much like where I was in South Africa.
Rocks don't lie. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. And when people tell me that fossils are a hoax, I'm like, come with me. Tell me how this is a fucking hoax.
And dinosaurs walk Texas, walk through North America.
We have
your job's go find them.
Well, not dinosaurs. I was not. I'm looking for Permian, and in Permian Basin, which is West Texas, you would find like Dimetrodons. And where I was in South Africa was a little later in the Permian, so I was finding therapsids, which are big. Imagine something that is not quite lizard and not quite mammal, but somewhere in the middle.
Cool.
And the size of a cow.
All right.
So yeah, very, very weird animals.
Why?
Just imagine how horrible a 600-pound lizard dog would look.
Yes. And look, why didn't Noah get these animals? What's the woolly mammoth? I thought he rescued all animals, and I want some woolly mammoth around.
And what was so beautiful about that was that having all of the proof that there was never a global flood right in front of you. I mean, I'm in a place that people don't go. I'm out in the middle of the desert. This is not a high traffic area. So when I finally do find a cache of fossils, I've got a jumble of bones from different animals all piled up in one place. And when you trace it out, it's a riverbed that isn't a riverbed anymore, but 200 million years ago it was a riverbed. And this is where the river bent. So anything that got caught there got stacked here.
Aquatic creatures, bones of dead animals.
You have a flash flood or something, and things get stacked up because like the river bends. So in the bends you get pile-ups.
You found these things. It's got to be rewarding. Yeah,
that was a great fun for me. And one of the right near where that was, somebody found a salamander. The head of the salamander is about that big. So it was an alligator salamander.
Yes.
It's a fossil. And so this thing was trying to hibernate when the river area dried up.
All right.
So that's what they do, except that the river never came back.
Yeah.
So now we have a salamander alligator that's stuck in its hibernation, fossilized.
How many, besides the woolly mammoth and these you mentioned, there's got to be hundreds of others, right? That just didn't survive.
There are more genera in the fossil record than are alive today. If you look at the biodiversity that we have today and be impressed by that, if you look into the fossil record, there's so much more.
Are there some that look like Godzillas? So, come on, be honest.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and Godzilla's not a dinosaur either. Another thing, since we're going to go be on a Godzilla kick. TriStar's movie, the Godzilla 1998, which is also called Zilla. I absolutely hated that movie. I hated that movie worse than the one I'm just talking about because they paid no respect to the thing at all. Right, you have kaiju fans for 70 goddamn years have loved Godzilla. So let's what are we going to do? We're going to take away everything that made it Godzilla. We're going to turn it into an iguana. Godzilla could have been an iguana as he is and look as he does. But what we're going to do is we're going to say that he's an iguana, but we're going to make him a dinosaur. So they changed his legs, they changed his arms, they changed his stance. They turned him into a dinosaur because if he was a lizard, he would walk upright. I've seen lizards walk
Yes,
full upright.
yes, yes.
Okay, I had a Malaysian water monitor, which I don't recommend, by the way. Those things are horrible pets. They eat everything.
They eat other pets?
They, and people. In the wild, these lizards are man-eaters.
Right.
So they're not. I held one in my hand that was like 140 pounds and 7 feet long. No, it was 140 pounds and 7 feet long. It was a very stout fucking lizard, and his head was only about like this big. But I realized with the kind of venom that they have, because it is venom. It took a while to figure that out, but it is venom. The kind of venom and the strength that these things have. You'd have just taken my face off. Yeah, just in a moment.
Right.
Yeah.
And you were holding this.
Yeah, I caught mine. Mine got angry, and you can't see it, it's too dark. But mine took a strike at me, and I pulled my hand back. He snapped, and 2 of his teeth touched my finger.
Yeah.
Fortunately, because it was my middle finger, and if he had gotten me, I wouldn't have been able to express my emotions. So that slight wound bled like water for 2 days, even under a pressure bandage, because it's an anticoagulant saliva.
Oh.
So these are terrible things to have as pets.
Yeah.
They're awesome, especially if you just. When I first saw mine, I fell immediately in love with it. It was evil.
Were you the one who wrote that emus are related to T-Rex?
No, I didn't see T-Rex. Birds, all birds are dinosaurs. It's just more obvious when you look at an emu.
Because they have little arms that are.
They don't have wings, they have arms, and at the end of the arms they have a claw. And the other thing is they don't have any muscle in their arms. So if people, the creationists will always say, well, there's no such thing as a vestigial feature because it still has a use. First of all, that's not what vestigial means. And second, if you don't have any musculature in your arm, what goes the claw?
Yeah.
You can't move your arm.
Right.
So no point in that.
Do we have tails? Do we have small tails in our butt bone?
Our butt bone technically is a tail, and there are atavisms. Sometimes, in rare occasions, atavisms can appear that have bone in them, but they're extremely rare. A more interesting
in humans.
Yes, it's extremely rare, but it has happened. And one of the other things that has also happened is that many other mammals have a baculum, a penis bone, and so chimpanzees have a penis bone, but it's very, very small. So it's very slight, very thin. And sometimes, in some cases, because nobody's examined all of them, in some cases, the penis bone is gone. So they've at least had documentation that, why would you check for such a thing? I don't know. This is just how science is. So they have a report that some chimpanzees were on autopsy or whatever it is that they do, discover that this, when they're studying the anatomy of this thing, hey, isn't this supposed to have a baculum? It doesn't. There's no penis bone. On rare occasions, people have been born with a penis bone in a similar condition, very, very thin, very wispy. So it's very vestigial, it's barely there. So, on the chimpanzees and humans, we're on either end of, do we barely have it, or have we just barely lost it?
Are we making certain domesticated animals smarter, or have they always been that smart? Now we just know how to communicate better with them?
Well, I think we are doing an advantage to some animals to make them smarter. I'm not sure about that though. I had hope for raccoons, and I noted that raccoons living in the city and everything, they should have every advantage for being smart. They're very generalized. They can still walk on hind legs. They still have use of their hands. So they're procyonids. Raccoons are pre-dogs. They're like what the ancestor of dogs looked like before they were dogs. Is what a raccoon looks like. But the weird thing is why do they still look like that? And why is it that when you go to Russia, you go to North America, there are different species of raccoon. If you go to South America, there's something called a cotamundi, which is a raccoon that is very
long tail
and a long nose. So it's visibly very different, essentially the same thing. And so I talked to a biologist who's been studying these things, and we go, why do we have such homogeny of raccoons in North America and all across Asia? Why are we not seeing more diversity in there? They should be evolving faster than us. And he said that one of the studies that they had done was it shows that raccoons evolve at a very low rate. They have a very low mutation rate.
Low rate.
Yeah. So their evolution is virtually stopped because they have such a low mutation rate. There are certain species that have been documented to evolve faster than other species. It's their mutation rate. Humans, for example, have an average of 128 mutations per zygote. So that when the sperm meets the egg, typically 128 mutations right from there.
Gotcha.
And then you accumulate more mutations as you grow. Raccoons don't have such a high number as we do. And the only reason we don't grow or we don't evolve faster is because we are one global interbreeding population. The bigger the parent genome, the more inhibition on novelty. So new traits have a harder time being expressed because there's going to be recombinations back with future generations.
Yeah.
And the norm,
Gotcha.
the norm kind of overrides the novelty. So in a small population, well, now suddenly you've got new things. It's not very long. If you take two small populations of that one big one, take them and put them in isolated places, and very few generations down the road, you will be able to tell if an interloper travels between them. You'll be able to tell just by looking at it which group it came from. Whereas if you took one from the big group, they're still the same. Because the big groups evolve slow, the little groups evolve
so
fast.
help me understand the two groups and what is the interloper?
If a lone wanderer goes from this group to that group,
Gotcha.
you would recognize which group did it come from.
Gotcha.
If you caught it in the middle in no man's land, you'd recognize by its
Because of
traits.
small groups in each. Gotcha.
Because there are traits, and it happens in humans fast enough. It doesn't take terribly long in generations to recognize, are you from here versus are you from there?
Yeah. What is your heritage?
I am kind of inbred, at least according to the stories of cousin mom and cousin dad tell me.
Come on. See, you should write for Hollywood. We need a little more original humor.
Well, my family did come from a really small town in Arizona where they had been there for many generations. So when you are in a small town for many generations, it's pretty quickly when you couple gets together and they start looking up their genealogy, their common grandfather isn't that far down the road.
You have Nordic in you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nordic and basically some German and otherwise British Isles and Scandinavia.
And for Neil Gaiman fans, we were talking about American Gods.
Yeah.
Would you come back? We're kind of wrapping up here, but would you come back another time? We're talking about Neil Gaiman and American Gods.
I would love to do that. Yes.
Good.
This was a bucket of fun.
Yeah, heck yeah. We're casual and fun. I occasionally get a little serious, but I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Is there anything else on your calendar, agenda, radar that we need to be aware of?
COVID shut everything down. I've got no travel plans and nothing. I just do my regular shows.
You're pro-vaccine?
Yeah, I'm fully vaxxed.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah, and I noticed when a pandemic like this happens, you need to address it completely and immediately. And we did exactly the reverse. And the consequence of that is we have all these different strains, all emerging. Some of them are more dangerous than others. And the UK one is now already dominant in the United States. So they keep wanting to call it the China virus. No, this is the Limey virus now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
And now it's the American virus. So
Yeah.
shut the fuck up. So with that one being more contagious than the other ones, it means that our vaccination is not quite as reliable. So if you have to hit this with everything immediately, because if you delay and you let little pockets keep going, they evolve. There's this thing called evolution.
There you go. Like New Zealand did, right? And now they're down to very minimal cases because it was hard and fast.
Yeah. And the problem with New Zealand was that you needed everybody on the planet to be doing it. So they took care of it, and Taiwan took care of it. Both countries did really, really well, but they're not completely isolated. So other people keep bringing this shit in.
And the funny thing is too, I heard a politician say, well, yeah, we can call it the China virus because the Spanish flu was called the Spanish flu.
Even though it's from Kansas.
Exactly. No concept of American history, world history. Doesn't that frustrate you? You wrote this in the book. We are anti-science, anti-intellectualism, and anti-thinking country.
It's very frustrating.
We are devolution. We are in devolution.
Here's something I didn't put in the book. I was having a conversation with some people that I worked with at this office once upon a time, and I was shocked to find how incurious people are. So I would find new bits of news, new technology coming up, things like this, things that excited me, and so I would talk about them to people I work with. Nobody gives a shit. Matter of fact, this one woman told me, if it doesn't directly affect how much food I put on the table, I don't want to know about it. I couldn't imagine that. And so another guy that I was working with, he told me that I give people too much credit for being being smarter than they really are. And to prove that to me, he told me to think of a thing of common knowledge that I think everybody should know. Well, I thought the speed of light, because your first week in college, chemistry or whatever, speed of light applies to everything. Who doesn't know the speed of light? I'm thinking, because that's a common knowledge figure, I thought. So we interviewed 200 people in that office. Only one person in the entire office knew what the speed of light was, and he was the head of the IT department.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he makes the big bucks, because he's the only one who knows common knowledge. Everybody else was talking about hundreds of miles an hour.
Yeah. like your car could do it.
Exactly. Yeah, well, we saw the movie, it looked like that.
and think about, man, what the first when the speed of sound was broken. I mean, what brave pioneers these guys were.
Oh, well, that was all a hoax. None of that really happened.
Oh,
we never went to the moon. We never.
Yeah. But I mean, in this, 1960s rocket plane. I mean, think about that now.
Yeah,
we went to the moon in the 60s.
They went into orbit the year I was born, and I think they broke the speed of sound just a year or two before I was born. So like 1962 is when I was born.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm looking at progress. My family, not even kidding, were in covered wagons. I have photographs of my family album of my grandparents on horses with their 6-shooters and their cowboy hats. That's the life they really lived. I knew these people that were driving covered wagon. My grandmother delivered the mail on horseback because it's in Arizona, so they're behind a few decades. So seriously, so it still is. Some places you've gone back in time 50 years, but back then in the 1960s or in 1950s and 40s in Arizona, it was the 1800s. What the hell's the difference? My mother would tell me that the Indians, the Native, they all called them Indians, so they just fell into the way she's telling the story. The Navajo in this case, dressed like they did in the movies, with the leather tassel pants and the long hair and all the braids and everything. And nobody dresses like that now, but that's how they still dressed then. So we were making this huge progress. We're coming out of the 19th century, and we're zooming into the 21st century is what it looks like. We suddenly have cars, we suddenly have planes, we have all these things occurring all at once and occurring very rapidly. I'm thinking we're going to keep that up.
Yep.
And instead, we turned around and said, no, none of that ever happened. Our greatest achievement never happened at all. It's all a hoax. Nobody knows anything.
Can you believe it? I mean, 50 to 60 years after we landed on the moon, wouldn't you think we'd be further along? We're talking about almost 6 decades after landing on the moon. You'd think we'd be further along now, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, a topic for another time. I appreciate you so much, Aron. It's great to see you, man. And let's do it again. And we talk about Neil Gaiman, or we can talk about serious stuff.
I'm for either one.
All right, good. You got to be flexible when you come here. Just whatever my mood is.
Okay.
Love you, brother, man, and stay safe. And we'll say adios. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're here every Sunday, Corpsepaint Show at 6 p.m. Central. That's 7 Eastern. Thanks again.